Welcome to the Photographers Podcast, where we interview photographers from across the country. Every month, we will bring you a new personality where we step into the captivating world where moments freeze, emotions speak, and stories unfold with the click of a shutter.
In today's episode, we will explore the world with traveler Leif Petersen. Leif has experienced people and nature from all 7 continents.
Welcome to the Photographers Podcast, where we bring in experts from around the country to help us with our photography. Today, I want to bring in my good friend Leif Petersen, who's traveled all 7 continents around the world, to talk to us about some of his experiences. Thanks for joining us, Leif.
It's a pleasure to be here, Randy.
Well, I want to dig into it right now. And I mean, you've gone from like Norway to Antarctica to India. Like what got you into this in the beginning? What started you on this photography journey?
Well, my traveling goes back to when I moved to Canada with my family back many years ago. And then I traveled a lot in my career. I traveled a lot throughout Canada and the US, but then last 3 or 4 years of my career, I was traveling a lot internationally. Got to go to some great places.
And you always had a camera with you at the time?
Yes, I did. Didn't always get a chance to use it. Just jobs get in the way.
So a lot of the people I know really love your pictures from India and Norway. That's what they talk about the most. What makes these places so special, so intriguing?
Well, Norway is close to the heart because that's where I came from originally. And so I do enjoy going back there. I lead photo tours over there. India, I have a good friend who has spent a lot of years there, and he convinced me to go on a trip with him to India. We did an exploratory trip, and then we took a group over in 2019. Well, it's just a fascinating place to go to.
Well, that trip must have been very successful because everybody talks about it all the time.
Yeah, it was. We had 11 photographers with us. And we went to some neat places, the usual stuff. We saw the Taj Mahal, and we went to a place called Rishikesh, which is the yoga capital of the world, and that's where the Beatles went many years ago and spent their time.
I mean, how safe is it over in India? Like, did you find that it was like no problems at all?
No problems whatsoever. We were in some crowded streets in Delhi. And certainly no problems there going through the small towns. Never felt unsafe for a second throughout that trip.
That's beautiful. I mean, they say India, it's an explosion for your senses. Color, sounds, smells. How true is that?
Absolutely true, 100%. I mean, it just hits you right in the face as soon as you get off a plane.
Wow. Well, let's now go across the globe to Antarctica because I think you've been there recently, and I've got to imagine there's challenges in going to a place like that. I mean, you've got to go across some rough seas to get to this awe-inspiring place. So did you have any challenges? And if you did, let us know. But if not, just talk to us about how great that trip was.
Well, that trip was in just before COVID in 2020. As a matter of fact, got home just a week before the shutdown for COVID. As far as challenges to get there, it's a long trip. You fly direct from Toronto to Santiago, Chile, from there to Buenos Aires, and then from there to Ushuaia, which is the southernmost city in the world, and then get on a ship from there. So getting that far was no problem. Going across the Drake Passage or the Drake Channel can be a challenge, and it was. It was for me. The Viking in my blood didn't work so well. It doesn't work so well on high seas sometimes, and it was pretty rough.
Pretty rough, eh?
So I didn't feel the best, but during that crossing, for the most part, I stayed in the cabin, blinds drawn, lights off, pillow over my head, and I was just fine.
How long is that trip by boat?
That is a better part of 2 days.
2 days on rough seas.
Yeah.
I can imagine that being the most challenging. Now, you get rewarded when you land, right?
Absolutely. And while you're in the peninsula, it's calm. It's like glass, and the reflections for photography are phenomenal.
Wow. And what were some of the creatures that you would see? The animals, penguins, of course. And were they plentiful? Did you see tons of different kinds?
We saw a few different kinds. Saw Adelie penguins, chin straps, and they're plentiful. And they tell you on the ship to give I think it was either 3 or 5 meters away from the penguins. And some places you just couldn't do that because
they wanted to see you.
They would walk right across in front of me, in front of you. I had one case where I was watching this little penguin come along, and he tripped over my feet, fell on his beak, got up, and kept going. So he didn't get the lecture about giving the humans 5 meters.
Now, I've heard tale that in a congregation of penguins, it could be a little smelly.
Oh, it is very smelly. They poop a lot, and it's projectile.
Oh, it's projectile. Oh, gosh. All right, so we've talked in the past about some of your favorite photos from these locations. So let's talk about them individually.
Sure.
I'm going to bring them up on the screen for our audience to see, and let's just go through them, okay? So The first one I have up here is the waterfall in Iceland. And what I loved about it is your perspective. You're on the ground, you can see how big and enormous this waterfall is, but also the rock formations. So was it hard to get to? How did you know about it? What do you recommend to people if they want to get that kind of a shot?
Yeah, that certainly everybody knows about that waterfall, and I can't think of the name off it offhand. But we hiked up to above it.
Okay.
And we got some shots from above it.
As well.
And the water going into the pool at the bottom, and then from the bottom as well. And that basalt rock is just incredible.
Stunning.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are shooting from the top because that's the access they have in general. But getting from the bottom, I think, is a far more powerful shot.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
I loved it. it. The next shot we're going to pull up here is beautiful Africa, your air balloon trip. We're all just sitting here salivating over that opportunity. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I had been on a hot air balloon ride before, but just over the city of London down the road. But this was, I wouldn't have gone to Africa and not done that. That is something that's been high on my bucket list for a lot of years. And it's really easy to do. It's just paying $500 US to do it. So it's an early morning takeoff, and the weather has got to be perfect, and it was. It was absolutely perfect. It's a big basket that people are in, and there were 16 people in the basket, so it's pretty crowded.
Yes.
So you've got to strap in, and then you're supposed to strap in for the landing. But boy, what you see when you're up there, and it's an hour trip.
Right.
Takeoff to landing.
It sounds to me that you and I should get in the air balloon business. Paying people
Yeah,
at
I think
$500
they do
is
okay.
not too bad.
And when you have 10 hot air balloons going up at the same time, pretty much, you're raking in.
You're doing all right there, aren't you?
And one of the best things about that hot air balloon ride, at the end of it, then there's a champagne breakfast out on the plains.
Oh my!
So,
and when you're up there, can you see some of the wildlife?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of animals. Saw a lot of elephants, giraffe, and a few others. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to ancient China and the Great Wall. Now, what I love about this picture is there's no people, and I know that wall can be packed with people. So, are you in a unique location for it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. My first trip to China, and it was a business trip, and I've been over there, I think, a half a dozen times, twice on photography trips. My wife and I were there for 2 months teaching, and that was a month of teaching and a month of traveling around. So we went to this location at the Great Wall. I had done a walk there previously on my first trip, and it was to a part of the wall that was crowded, a lot of people. This one, we saw 2 other people. It's not maintained the same way the other one is, but boy, the shots you get.
Wow.
Just the real thing was fantastic.
Isn't that funny? We like it that it's not well maintained.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because that gives us authenticity and, you feel like, so I love that picture. So,
and we had a driver take us to this place.
Yeah.
And we didn't know about it, but
Right.
he said, I'll take you to
Well, that's
a good part of the world.
You know, being nice to people everywhere does have its advantages, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's a great tip for people that are traveling. Always be kind and, courteous, and you'll be surprised at all the secrets that will unfold for you, right?
Absolutely, whether it's China or India or anywhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're good to the people that you're meeting,
Right.
you're going to get it back in
Yeah,
spades.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So now I want to talk about my favorite picture, which
right.
is the overhanging trees in Ireland. To me, it's like the Secret Garden show. First of all, it's quite a scene, and the way you've done your post-processing on it. So let's talk about how you found out about this laneway, how you got it with no cars, and some of the post-processing that was involved with that.
Okay. My wife and I were there on a trip, and I didn't know about it, but I was looking at a magazine in the hotel room, and I saw this place. Said, okay, we got to go there tomorrow morning early. So we head off, and it's called the Dark Hedges.
Okay.
And it goes back, these are old beech trees that were planted around 1750. And the road is about a mile long, and it was originally the driveway going up to a very wealthy family's estate. And one end of it now is a golf course. So we were there early, no cars. I was set up with my camera on a tripod in the middle of the road, and Bonnie was watching out for cars. And I got a bunch of shots in both directions, but I wanted to get one in one direction going down to where this golf course is. Couldn't see it, of course. And I was set up in the middle of the road, and Bonnie yells car, so I pick everything up and go into the shoulder, and a van comes by, and they stop on the road. And I waited a couple of minutes. It was like, how many people can you get into a phone booth? They all piled out of the van. So I stayed on the shoulder of the road, and I turned around and shot the other direction, and that was the best shot of the day.
Oh,
yeah.
Isn't that, we always tell people sometimes your best shots are behind you.
Always, always, always look behind you.
And God bless Bonnie,
Yep.
putting up with you, stopping, waiting. She's got her magazine in the car, but she's also out there helping you. Like,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh, lucky you. So now, the last shot, kind of showcasing you've been around the world, is in Moscow, and it's a picture of the Kremlin.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for me it's just such it's like I'm in a magic land almost, because of the way it's swirled and the colors. What were your emotions taking that picture? Was it a highlight of that trip for you? How'd you end up in Russia in the first place?
Well, I was in Russia on a business trip, and I've been over there 4 times, I think it was. That was my first trip, the shot of St. Basil's Cathedral. And I was in Red Square, myself and my sales manager with me. So that was an experience in itself, just being in Red Square, going into the gum department store and all that, and just being there for St. Basil's, getting the shot of that. It was fantastic.
I mean, that's a shot that you put away for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah, and I was staying in a great hotel, the Kempinski Hotel, which is kind of across the street from the Kremlin. And just being there, being able to get shots from the bedroom window of the Kremlin.
So what year were you in Russia?
That was in, I'm going to say it was January 2004.
Any political issues going on at the time?
Nothing. Nothing that I was aware of.
Right. And no problems using your camera around?
No.
Like you weren't being, felt
I
like...
I didn't do a lot of photography there, but I had some great opportunities. Kevin and I my sales guy, we were given a private tour of the Kremlin Museum.
Wow.
And that was just
Stunning?
Stunning, yeah.
Wow.
One of the best things about being in Moscow was the restaurants. It was
Good food?
Oh, good food, just outstanding.
Wow, that, you don't hear that a lot.
No.
Right?
And some of the restaurants and that, just, the architecture, everything was just fantastic. But would I go back there today?
No, not.
No,
Times have changed, right?
Times have changed.
Yeah.
One of my favorite places besides Moscow was St. Petersburg, and went into the Hermitage Museum. Spent 3 hours in there and saw about that much of it. It was just breathtaking, and to think that people lived in this place, it was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's now turn our attention to the challenges of traveling around the world. I mean, you've got to be prepared. You've got to, I would think by now you've seen all the things that can go wrong, have gone wrong. So I'm looking for you to give us some tips and tricks, some secrets on how to travel successfully without running into some of the problems you might have.
Yeah. To tell you the truth, Randy, I really haven't had any problems. When I was traveling for work, we were very well looked after by our associates in different countries. But traveling on my own, the whole thing is preparation. Know where you're going, what you're doing, and again, be kind to people.
Right.
And you need some help sometimes, and you want to be able to get it, and the only way to do that is be nice to people, besides paying for it.
Well, yeah, yeah. And I mean, being nice to people, it's a common theme in my life is just, it's nice to be nice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like makes you feel
Absolutely.
good, right? And getting a smile from somebody.
Yeah.
Right? It's a wonderful experience, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And when you're in China and you're tall and you're blonde,
Well,
you could almost be a rock star there.
I have a friend who's 6'6" and went to China, and he had people following him everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine. And quite often, like I've been to China, I was there for about 16 days, and what happens is in some of the villages, like you're the only white people there, but the kindness of the people, and you're trying to talk, you can't talk the language, so you do a lot of hand gesturing and a lot of pull out your phone and show photos. I mean, that really works well too, right?
One of my neat memories from China, my first trip there, I think, was in April one year, 2003 or 4. And I got home and I had left a sweater there. And I was back a couple months later in June. I was checking into the same hotel and I said, I think I may have left a sweater here. They went behind and checked. Yeah, we have it here. They delivered it to the room, cleaned in a bag.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that a
Fantastic.
wonderful experience? So now, you sent me a couple of photos that are your favorites. Okay, and I'm going to show them up here on the screen, and I want you to talk about them. The first one is the chimpanzees. Talk to us about why that's a favorite of yours and a little bit of information behind it.
Well, I had an opportunity to go on this trip to Kenya and Uganda with photo tour trekkers, James Cowie. And I knew we were going to go to Kenya and see the chimpanzees and the gorillas. And I watched a series on Netflix, the Chimp Colony. And that was the national forest we went to and saw some of these. And being that close to these chimps, you think of chimps as being small creatures. These were pretty large animals. And the photo of the two sitting there with their arms around each other was kind of neat. And when I say close, it's, 10, 15 feet.
So are they now used to people?
Yeah, they are.
So it's good for the photography, but not so good for them, I would think, eh?
Well, it's a big forest, and you can be walking through there and you don't see them. You can hear them, and you have guides with you that are looking for them for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I love that picture too. It's sweet, right? It's like they're almost siblings, I would think, right? So, now the next picture I'm putting up here is probably it's iconic for you. It's a picture of the Aurora Borealis, and I think it's out of Norway.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? Like, was it hard to get? How did you feel? Because I look at it today and I feel something.
Yeah. going to Norway is fantastic in itself, and being in the north in the Lofoten Islands is just awesome. Seeing the Aurora Borealis takes it up a notch or two. But it's hit and miss. And I've been there in the fall in the same time of year and got nothing because it's overcast. But one year I was over there and I was staying at a cousin's house and just walked up the street a few hundred yards. This is in a small fishing village.
Right.
And then just sat in the rocks by the boathouse and got shots.
Wow.
It was fantastic.
It's stunning.
And then when I had a group there a couple years ago in 2022 in September, we went to this beach called Haugland, and just standing on the beach, and we ended up standing in a bit of water. So, and didn't care.
Yeah.
But they started appearing. And got bright and very dynamic, and then they died
dancing
down.
across.
Yeah. And around, it's all mountains and water. And then it started to die down and then build up again. Die down, build up again.
Stunning.
And yeah, it was just, and
Like
the
you
people
come home
with
different,
me,
don't you?
Oh, you do. You absolutely do.
Yeah.
You absolutely do. And we had one night right by the cabins we were staying in, and the people with me were very excited about it. And I thought to myself, you ain't seen nothing yet. And then our last night was this night at Haugland Beach, and they were just blown
And that's
away.
the photo we have up now. Yeah. Fantastic. I want to now move on to giving back to the photographic community, and you're really big in this. Your time with the Focal Forum, the O3C, which is the Ontario Council of Camera Clubs, and the Oshawa Camera Club. So why was it important for you to be involved in these organizations? I mean, you were the president in all of them, so I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think the primary motivation is meeting the people and getting involved. I mean, getting involved with the Ontario Council of Camera Clubs and meeting people from other photographers from right across Canada. Being involved with the Toronto Focal Forum, the group of printers, it's been going since 1939. And the Oshawa Camera Club since 1938.
38, yes.
You know, and being involved in that and being the president of it and kind of helping to, with the rest of the teams, lead to the future of those organizations.
Yeah,
and just helping people who are just getting into photography.
But you don't want these organizations to die on your watch.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah.
And with COVID that's come through, there's been a lot of stress on camera clubs to survive.
It has been a real challenge. Getting volunteers has been
the
biggest challenge.
I mean, and this is where Zoom has become a haven for getting speakers and things like that. But on the other hand, it's created a whole bunch of, I think I'll stay home and have a glass of wine and watch the show.
Absolutely. Which isn't a totally bad thing.
So I always like to ask our guests, who would you recommend to follow in social media or on a website? I mean, we all get motivated by somebody. So who motivates you?
Well, for street photography, Randy, yourself.
Really?
Yeah,
well, that's nice
absolutely.
Of you to say.
You go to places like India, it's street photography and architecture. So street photography, again, just getting on with people. For architecture, whether it's India or anywhere else, even locally in Toronto, there's nobody better around than Todd Murison, who we both know well from our experience. There are a couple of American photographers I've gotten to know, and I've had conversations with Cole Thompson, excellent black and white photographer, and a good friend of his, John Barkley. He leads tours around the world, and he is a great landscape photographer. Somebody else we know well, Kaz Stone, a Canadian, lives out in the Maritimes.
Yes.
Awesome photography, and she is a good person to know, and a great teacher, and a great inspiration.
Oh, those are some great people to follow. So if you guys are all at all interested in these, I'll put up their their Instagram handles on the bottom of
Yeah,
the show
do
for
that.
people to follow.
And another person who's been a great motivation to both of us is Barrett Mystery.
Oh,
So,
do you know, I keep telling the story about Barrett, and I'm going to get him on the show one day. Nikon has their top 100 photos of the year, and they usually get 30,000 photos that come in to compete for this. And one year Barrett had five pictures in the top 100. I mean, the man's he doesn't compete in our competitions anymore because he wants to give us a chance to win too, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I do love him too. So I just want to end our show with giving some, for people that want to start traveling but want to do more, like, you know, not just travel and take snapshots. Any suggestions for them if they're going to go to an exotic place? Like, what would you suggest to them so that they can take their photography up a notch?
well, one of the best pieces of advice, I think, is just get out there and shoot. Get the practice. We've seen people come up in the Oshawa Camera Club who have not been doing it for that long, and they're just good or better than we are. So it's just a matter
Natural.
of getting out there. And if you're going to do some traveling, talk to people who have done it.
It's the research, right?
It's the research, absolutely. And, you know, companies like Photo Tour Truckers and James Cowie, they've been doing this for a long time. And there are other companies around too. And just take advantage of that experience and the contacts they have around the world. Or my trips to Norway, you know, just getting in a car and driving and knowing the area. But the research is the
key.
biggest thing.
Yeah.
Whether you're going to do it alone or do it with somebody else.
Well,
Yep.
it's kind of, if you're a collective, if everybody has a little bit of information, right, you can all share it. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, Leif, I would just like you to tell people where they can find your work, and you know, I'll put it up along the bottom of the screen here,
Sure.
and just so they can follow your great photos.
Thank you. And some of these photos we talked about, they're like old friends, and it's always a pleasure going back to see them. Facebook and Instagram are the where I have mine.
And I'll put that there. So,
Okay.
listen, I really want to thank you for joining us today. I mean, you're a great friend to me. I appreciate you doing this, and I want to thank you.
My pleasure, Randy. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, for sure. All right, folks, so stay tuned for our next episode, and keep following us if you want to learn more about photography. Have a great day.